Hello again, Flosstube. It's me, Michelle, the Chinook Crafter, on Instagram and YouTube, and I'm back for my third Flosstube. It's good to be back. I didn't get a lot of stitching done this last 2 weeks. Just life happens, and that is how it goes. And so just do what I usually do and jump right into it. I'll start with the life update, which is why I didn't do a lot of stitching. My toddler was sick, and so we had just a very runny nose, you know, as toddlers do. And she just wanted snuggles and cuddles, and I was not getting snot on all my projects. Plus, you know, you can't really stitch when you're hugging someone. So that was a big slowdown, but it's fine, you know. I managed to not get sick, so I will take that as the win it is. And then basically the same time she was sick, our cat, he had some medical distress. I think he ate part of my daughter's shoe, which like the rubber foam bit of a crock, and they just, you know, it was scary. We came home and there was some cat puke, and we thought he just had a hairball that he was working on. So, you know, we gave him some time, and it just wasn't passing, and he was not eating or drinking and just very lethargic. And so took him to the vet, did an x-ray, found out his one kidney was smaller, so they thought it was kidney failure. Turns out he just has a small kidney after some blood work, so that was a really stressful hour and a half waiting for results. And basically we got him hydrated and like pain meds and took him home, and he started to get back to like his old self. He's actually sitting like right there. He was sitting right here, but you know, I guess he's a little camera shy. You know, doesn't want to have his shenanigans broadcast to the world. So yeah, it was a very upsetting, distressing couple days. I spent a lot of time just coaxing him to drink and eat and chasing him around with that food and keeping my toddler away from him too, because the poor boy, he's so loved, but sometimes that love is very physical. So that was the big two things that happened that just kind of made it physically and mentally impossible for me to stitch, but I did still manage to get some stuff done. Most exciting, as you can see from the hopeful thumbnail I took, is I had a start and a finish. So this is, here we are. I talked about my feelings about the new Harry Potter game in the last Flosstube, and my disappointment in J.K. Rowling as a human being and influential person in my childhood. And so I'm not the only one that feels that way. D's 20 Stitches, who I think is best known for Stitch for Pride, they designed this. It's Make a Statement #1, so they'll be doing more. And they had it finished as like a really cute banner, yes. You know, so like bunting, I think is when there's more than one. And so yeah, I'm planning on finishing it that way too. I just finished it this morning because I had to do like some like little bits and doodads. And it was really a cathartic experience to stitch. I did not enjoy this stitch. This navy blue Ida was from Stash, and it was very, very stiff and uncomfortable to work with, plus just being a dark fabric. I had this goldish satin floss, and it was horrible to work with. It frayed, and there's like little like bits of fuzz everywhere, and I don't think my stitches look as neat as they usually do, so it was just frustrating to stitch these words that should not have taken as long as they did. But that was fine. I stole all these colors from my mom. So I wanted to do these. These are the blue and the pink here are the actual colors for the bisexual flag. When you, not the bisexual, the transgender flag. Sorry, I'm tripping over my words. The transgender flag. And the pink was sold out in every single Michael's in Calgary. And while searching for, you know, possible alternatives, I found out the pink was a substitution for a discontinued color, which my mom actually had because her stash is 30 years old and she had a little bit of the blue left. So I was like, fantastic, that's mine. And when I was there, I started and mostly finished. I did make a couple mistakes in spacing, and I want to have this as proof that I don't always unpick my mistakes, because that will be something that comes up later. So yeah, the spacing's off like just a little bit here, and I don't know, I made it work, so it's fine. And yeah, it's done and fuzzy and fraying and covered in cat hair, and that'll be finished later. Then I've made some progress on the Death to the Dictator pattern by Crafty Yams. She has a Flosstube and Instagram as well. And so this is a pattern that she did as a part of a Stitch for Iran program. And it's been increasingly relevant. I was just watching on the news today that there's a suspected poisoning of Iranian schoolgirls who try and keep them out of school. And this one that's done will be a female lioness, bearing a sword with other symbolic elements, saying death to the dictator. And I've mentioned it before that there is an ongoing human rights crisis in Iran. I don't feel as educated as I want to be to speak on it to a larger audience. Instead, I'd recommend going to Crafty Yams and listening to other Iranian voices. I know, they are more in tune with the political climate and history and connotations leading up to this than I am. On that same note, tying in back to Stitch for Pride and Iran, it's also Stitch Asia this month, so I'll continue working on this as a focus piece for that. It's kind of nice when things fall together when you don't plan them, I had to pick this one earlier, and I've started to add this. I'm hoping to finish the page that I'm working on. It's like the center page because I center started, and once that's done, that's like, I feel like the bulk of the stitching. And so it is what it is. I started to work on my whip go wheel. I didn't do too much because life was busy. The pigeon coops, I'd rather be camping. This is what it will look like when it's done. Came up. And so I think that, no, I know this is a discontinued pattern. Right when I was kind of getting into the cross stitch, I think they were moving, so they were having like a clearance sale on like old kits, so I picked up a couple. It's just like a nice little easy one. Like I think I've almost got the bulk of it done because I managed to do the whole tent and the start of the tree. And basically the tent's like, I think the biggest chunk of stitching because there's 3 trees, a fire, and then boards. So this is nice. I want to have it to go down with our camping equipment. I don't know, our basement's unfinished, but nice little summer bit. I hope we do go camping this summer. It's hard to stay with the babies because camping with children, it's a new adventure. We will definitely be going hiking with them, but camping might be, I don't know, that feels a little scary with bedtimes and nap times and safety, sleeping on air mattresses and sleeping bags. So yeah, we'll find out. We'll find out how brave we are in the summer. Moving on to that, this one is the Pumpkin Colored Autumn by Embroidery. So I've gotten the whole top border done, but I'm just gonna fold it. This has come up twice on my wheel, so I've sprung 3 times and I got this one twice, so it's my 3rd time working on it. So I was able to finish all the motifs across the top and start on the variegated green at the bottom. It's slow going just because it's variegated threads, so I'm having to do each stitch individually, and it's a lot of spaced out motifs. I'm hoping once I've got like the border bit done and I can actually move like the, like there's like a squirrel and owl and like pumpkins. I hope those ones will go a little bit faster because it's not as like repetitive counting. I'm also a little bit iffy about the fabric. I think it's called Sun Shower by Perman. It's also kind of on the stiff side, but it's softening up, and it's the demo piece was stitched on. Oh, 1 second. Oh, okay. I thought my cat was joining me. No, he's just leaving me. I think I scared him away. I was going to show him off. I stinker. Yeah, it was stitched on like a natural linen, kind of almost like kind of like this sort of like color, and all those like colors really popped on it. But I have so many on like the natural or cream colored, and I want to be like a little bit adventurous. I thought like a nice gold would complement the colors, and it does and it doesn't. I think maybe I'm just too close to the work because, when I ask other people it's fine, but when I look at it I'm like, I don't know. I think I'm just doubting myself, and I just need to see it through, and it'll be a nice little bright autumn piece. And then I was continuing on with my stitch alongs. This is the one that keeps popping up, the Life is Sweet by Durene Jones in the World of Cross Stitching. I am not yet done January. I've got the whole border done, and I was almost done the tart, but then I made a mistake and I had to unpick it. Not a huge one, it's just because there's so many colors, and you miscount one and there's like 4 colors, and you have to do so much more work. I am enjoying this one. I think it is quite cute. The amount of color changes has really slowed me down, because like in these little borders, there's like 4 different pinks and reds, and so you know you do 2 stitches, and then you switch, and then you do 2 stitches. So it's a very pleasing effect when it's done, but very slow going to stitch, because you know you have to be really focused, and it's not just like the zoom zoom zoom. I'm stitching a whole bunch and I feel accomplished. Yeah, so that's where I got with that. I also did more progress on my Pixie Pixel Pluses, Pixie Pixel Stitches Natural World Stitch Along. So I'm using a sulky variegated thread for it on a piece of linen that I had in my stash that my parents got in a garage sale for me. And I had to unpick a row before I did this, but I've got this top, this is still a January release, the January bit, and I've started to bring myself down. I had a lovely Zoom hangout with many of the people doing this stitch along yesterday, and it was really fun just to like stitch and talk to other people. I hope they didn't mind the baby fussing too much, and try to keep that to the minimum. And yeah, made a fair bit of progress. You know, it's like mirroring tasks, you know, like when someone else is stitching, I'm more inclined to do like more work. And yeah, no, I just really need to catch up on it. It's looking great, and so many people have made fantastic color choices. I'm kind of regretting just the plain, like the plain cream, but I do think it makes the variegated floss pop more, so I'm going back and forth on that one. So sometimes I feel like it looks like a little like camouflage print. You know, it's supposed to be more like, it's like pine palette. So we'll see. We'll see how it goes. This is kind of like a future plan one. I know Marjorie makes started a full coverage star along, and I have this dimensions kit of Frederic the Literate. It is a smaller full coverage. It's like a 12 by 11 inches or 30 by 28 centimeters. And so it's not like one of those like massive pieces, but for me it would be fairly massive because I've never done a full coverage. And it's also on black and has some metallics and a lot of back stitching, so I feel like that, you know, makes up for the smaller size. And it's a starter long, and it's called Rip My Whips, which is also a hilarious hashtag, which is kind of half the reason I want to join. And this has been in my whip gold wheel and hasn't been called, so I haven't started yet. So I might start that one tomorrow and count it as joining in on that start along. This is like, I have had this for almost a year, and it's really a perfect piece for me. There's a bunch of books, there's a cat, there's an owl, like a bunch of puns. So I've wanted to stitch this. I think I was mostly just putting it off because stitching on black is just a pain in the butt. So yeah, that's what I've got and kind of planning on working. And on that same note, I mentioned I was visiting my mom over the last weekend, and she used to cross stitch 30 years ago, and she hasn't done anything really other, like she finished me and my sister's nursery pieces and then stored them for 30 years, found them when I was asked for some colors for some projects, so she got them framed for my daughter's nursery, which, I mean, I guess I don't feel bad about not finishing my objects because it's not 30 years late. It's only like, I think my oldest finished object that hasn't been fully finished is like a couple, well, not yet a year old, because I started in February, and I want to say I finished it April, so you know, it's not 30 years. So she had 3 cases, and like I was looking for colors for my make a statement piece, so she was getting frustrated because her 4 cases were all disorganized. And, you know, and I was like, oh, well, I love organizing, so I was like, I can do it while I'm visiting. So I organized it, and I went and I pulled out all her duplicates for myself. Except I had to split it with my sister, so this is like half the duplicates she had, but I used my little handy dandy Excel tracker to grab the colors I didn't have or ones I knew I needed extra for projects I want to do. So I have this handy dandy little Ziploc bag that I'm going to organize into my kits later. And I don't know if anyone's heard about the Buy Nothing group, but I got really lucky on my local communities one. Somebody was giving away one of those like 4x4 calyx cubes with the attached desk, and it was gifted to me, so it's assembled in my basement. I am slowly working on unpacking all my craft supplies. The basement's unfinished, the lighting's not the greatest, but it'll be a permanent home for my sewing machine, and like pulling my craft supplies out of the boxes they were stored in when we made the room they were in into my daughter's nursery. So then I'm gonna have like a little craft space, and it'll be like a lot easier to go and grab things. And I'm hoping that since I don't have to like haul my sewing machine up and down the stairs and set up, that I'll actually get some sewing done. And I'm really excited about that because I've really want to get into that and make progress on that. So that's kind of what's going on. The same thing with Buy Nothing. We've kind of been on a decluttering kick lately, and I've been trying to go through and like use things like, you know, it's one thing that you have like all these fancy perfumes or soaps and makeup, but like if you never use them, they just go bad. Like you're not a Viking or an Egyptian, they're not going in your funeral grave with you. So you might as well use them and enjoy them while you can. And it's been kind of nice, you know, to use the nicer soaps and, you know, play around with my lip glosses and lipsticks and feel like a little more indulgent sometimes. You know, why not make every day a special day? So been doing that, and that has been nice, and just keeping those things going. Short interruption because my cat was being noisy, and you know, had to take a little break there. So just was talking about how we're like decluttering and going through things, and yeah, no, it's been nice. We're making real progress in the basement. Like I said, it's unfinished, and I don't know if we'll be finishing it this year or next, just because, you know, it's expensive to finish a whole basement, and I don't think we quite know what we want to do with it yet. So yeah, getting all that out and organized. It's not really exciting, but I'm excited about it. And yeah, I did do a lot more reading this week than I have the other couple weeks, just because I wasn't able to stitch, and I've been listening to more audiobooks. I'm just gonna pull up what I was reading. I know one of the ones I read and would like to recommend is Seanan McGuire's Wayward Children series. I just read the newest book in that one. Gosh, I'm trying to remember what it's called. So I love her work. She's done fantastic work for me. She's got the October Days series, which is like this urban fantasy retelling of this, I don't know how to describe it. It's like if you're a detective with a part magical heritage, and you take a case, and it just, and like that's book one, and as each book goes, you're finding out more and more about your heritage and your place in the world, and it just gets bigger and more complex. Like you can tell when she wrote her first book, she had a vision, and you know, I think we're like 14, 15 books in, and the vision is just becoming fully fleshed, and I'm here for the ride. I know that, I want to say it's the second or third book's kind of weak, but then it's been really picking up steam. So she's written that one. She's had a really fun cryptid series, which I find very humorous. And again, it's just like, there's a family of zoologists when they're, you know, acknowledging that the cryptid world is real, and they're like managing it and trying to keep them safe, because there's also like the Covenant of St. George, who are like the cryptid exterminators, and so they're also clashing. So that's been a really fun one. And then she's got her books written as Mirror Grant, which are like the zombie apocalypse, like what happens like 20 years after the zombie apocalypse, you know, like your adjustment to that daily life, which is both gory and very, like, she's just a very funny author. But her Wayward Children series is kind of like, you know, dealing with Narnia and things like that, you know, like what happens when you come back through the door. And then maybe there's a magical boarding school for when you come back through the door, because not all worlds you travel to are safe and kind and, you know, good fits. And that was called, oh goodness, Lost in the Moment and Found. And that was the 8th one in the series. Some of them are stronger than others, but they're only about like 130 pages, so they go by really fast. And yeah, no, Lost in the Moment and Found wasn't above average for me. She wasn't my favorite protagonist, but it wasn't like my least favorite in the series. And I always enjoy grabbing them and seeing what was going on with that. So I read that. I read Chief Seattle and the Town That Took His Name, and it was just kind of a biography of Chief Seattle and his role and impact in the formation of Seattle and the colonization in that area. I lived in Vancouver Island for a few years, which is just up the like a 2-hour ferry ride away from Seattle. So of course, like the First Nations group tribes were all this very similar and, you know, overlapping. So it was very interesting to hear some of those place names and kind of the impact on what the history was before Canada and the Americans were like that separate. So that was a really interesting read. I did it as an audiobook. Yeah, just like I like to have like something on the background while I stitch. And speaking of that, I was talking to Megan, the Seattle Stitcher, and found out from her one of her favorite YouTube channels for like history. So I'm going to be listening to that because we were having a very good conversation about the Tudors and like kind of like the off-focus Tudors, because like, I mean, everyone knows about Elizabeth and King Henry VIII and, you know, and Bloody Mary, but then there's all like the secondary and tertiary like actors and players in that time, you know, who are royal, and then just because they weren't the victors of history, they fall into the wayside. Like, we were actually having a good talk about like who could have been a possible heirs to the Tudor throne if it hadn't gone the way it did, and what we thought about Queen Elizabeth and why she reacted the way she did to some potential heirs. So that was really interesting. And I'm looking, and I'll start because we're talking about if Joanna of Castile and Aragon was really mad or not. And so just really interesting. I have a huge interest in that, which is funny because one of the books I read was Henrietta Maria by Leanda de Lisle, and it's about King Charles I's wife. Yes, because I tend to stop off as soon as like King James takes over. I stop caring. You know, a couple of years into the Shakespeare, I'm done. And so I know there was interesting to read about kind of what happens after, because I kind of go Queen Elizabeth, nothing till Queen Victoria. I do not know about really what happens in that time period between. Like, I know there's the Charles and there's Cromwell and there's Glorious Revolution and there's like William and Mary of Orange, but I didn't care. Like, those are just names I'm throwing out. So it was interesting to go in. She had a very engaging writing style for a historical nonfiction. So I would really recommend that one. And yeah, that was really good. And then I also read Hellbent by Leigh Bardugo. It's the sequel to Ninth House, and it really filled a dark academia niche with a bit of necromancy, you know? So that was really fun. I recommend, obviously you have to read Ninth House first to really understand what's going on in Hellbent, but it was really enjoyable read. Kind of ironic that the Dark Academia box was released the same time I was reading Hellbent. With the shipping, it being over, like in the US conversion rate, it was over $200, so I did not get that box. So please, everyone, post reveals so I can be jealous and, you know, well, not jealous, envious, and pick out which patterns I'm going to buy in a year from now when they get released from the vaults. Yeah, it is what it is. I am excited to see all the Dark Academia reveals. And the same thing for National Needlework. I loved seeing all those. I have a list of patterns I want to do, but just wasn't able to do the pre-orders because my silly cat had a vet bill. And I'm just going to grab him. He came within my reach again. Ooh. There. Here's the cat. Here is the kitty cat. Oh, yes. Did you make it so Mama couldn't buy more cross-stitch stuff? Oh, yes, you did, but that's okay. I'll just stitch your hair into my projects. Yeah, his name's Odie. It's based off of, well, Odysseus. It's based off of the Greek myth. Yes, it is handsome. Yeah, because he was a stray, and we like to say that it took him a while to find his home. And he's a nice, smart boy. Mm-hmm. Yes. Okay, I'm gonna let him go. He's like, this is too much affection. He doesn't like the affection unless there's like a cuddly blanket involved. Yeah. So yeah, that is what's been happening. I don't really have anything planned. I'm just gonna keep stitching. Like, I want to try and clear out a lot of my works in progress because I want to start new things, but I don't want to be overwhelmed by how much I have. And I want to really get my sewing machine set up and hopefully get some stuff sewn up, because that'd be exciting to show. You know, new skills. And look, I have one more thing I want to. Oh yes, I want to get my. This is tied into getting the sewing machine done. I have like 6 finished objects now because I have to make a statement piece. So I want to get those fully finished because they've just been sitting around, and if they're finished, they can go up on the wall or gifted, because one of them's a gift. Ooh, sorry, my bad. And get them out and where they're supposed to be, because I've worked so hard on these. I want them up on the wall. I want people to come into my house and compliment me on my hard work. So yeah, thanks for watching. Listening to my rambles, and I'll see you guys again in about 2 weeks.